Wow, so many people left. I'll try not to take that personal. Let's see if we can get, no. Here we go. So I'd like you to do me a favor. I'd like you to picture, those of you who've been at E3, picture E3, the scene at E3, or maybe at GDC if you've been there, or if you haven't been at one of those shows, just here. Having a room full or a conference full of industry professionals. And now I'd like you to picture a company that goes every year, and every year is told that, insert here, if you don't move on to this new technology, this new platform, this new target audience, or this new genre, you're just not going to be here next E3. At the same time, this company that's being told all of this has had about a 35% growth yearly, more or less, since 2006. So clearly, these two images don't mesh that well. Now, we've all gathered here today to talk about some of the new, really exciting trends in gaming and in the industry in general. We're also going to share ideas, inspire each other. And what I wanted to do was to share a little bit of our journey, how we've been able to navigate all of this new trends and new technology that's been coming at us during the more than a decade that we've been active, and what some of those guiding principles have been for Paradox along the way. It's a very personal journey, but I think that hopefully you'll be able to take away something from it in the sense that if you can find your own path in all of this new technology, then maybe we'll meet here in 10 years' time and you can tell me what your guiding principles was during your journey. All right, so who am I and why am I standing in front of you? I'm the CEO of Paradox Interactive. This is my 11th year at Paradox. During the course of these 11 years, we've published about 75 games, and 6 of these franchises have gone on to sell over 1 million units. So we're fairly, I mean, it's not the EA and Supercell numbers that you saw earlier, but we're quite happy with this. My specialization is in marketing, communications, organizational development and growth. But as most of you know who come from the startup scene maybe, when you start out small. You're basically involved in every aspect of the business. I've been involved in every aspect of the business at Paradox since we started. A little bit about Paradox for those of you who don't know us. I'm just going to stand here, so I'm not. We do premium PC, Macs, and Linux games. We actually are going to release on a console this year as well. We're super excited about that. We have been called the world leaders of grand strategy, genre leaders, which is flattering, and I agree with that statement. We have about 2.5 million registered Paradox account users and a very, very active community. Right now, we have about 180 employees across 3 offices in Sweden. I came in as employee number 12 in 2004, so there's been a steady organic growth over the years. We work with more than 8 different studios worldwide, great development partners. One of them you're going to meet later on today, Colossal Order. And we have a very diverse company. All right, this is the mandatory number slide. I'm not going to stay here for very long. I just want to show you that the growth has been fairly consistent over time, with a few dips, of course, but overall, fairly consistent. All right, I tend to call the games industry a bit of a black hole. And I don't mean a black hole in the sense that the gravitational pull pulls in everything and then there's no hope, right? I just mean that even if you gathered all of the best analysts in our industry in one room, they wouldn't accurately be able to predict what's going to happen in 5 or 10 years' time in our industry. At least I haven't been able to see that during the decade that I've been active and involved. They could probably give you an idea, but there has to be a certain sense of where you want to go and your direction and your path. So if you take that black hole, some indications of where we're going, and then you add game executives who are by far some of the best talkers I have ever seen. They're visionaries, they can paint a fantastic picture, In fact, if the talk was a currency, I'm sure the Fortune 500 list would be full of just game execs and game companies. You take the analysts, the black hole, the game executives that talk a good game and are brilliant visionaries. If you're a developer or a publisher or a startup or an investor, how do you go about assessing what's really out there and how you should interpret the trends that are out there? That's a little bit what I'm going to talk about today. All right, how many of you have heard this described as a game? It's not about the destination, it's about a journey. It might sound like a buzzword, but for us it's really been the case. We have really looked at our journey as the goal itself rather than having some kind of end goal, some kind of exit plan further down the line. And what I mean by that is that we've looked at our incremental growth and our step-by-step growth as a goal on its own on this journey that we've been on for the past 10 years. So for instance, we went from being a developer to being a publisher of our own stuff. A little bit forced because our publisher went bankrupt at the time, but we also felt like we knew our products the best and we knew our gamers the best, so why shouldn't we be able to do it ourselves? All right, so we conquered that and we were able to do publishing on our own, so why not invite other developers to do the same with us and become partners with us? So we added third-party development. So once we had gotten past that point, we were like, okay, there's people all over the world who want to buy our games. They can't get access to them, so they have to pirate them. Let's try and figure out how we deal with distribution. So we started our own digital distribution platform, and now we're on, of course, all of the big distribution platforms. We were able to reach more gamers worldwide. Okay, so we've nailed the distribution part. We were visible everywhere where we wanted to be, and then what's next? Okay, we want to cut out the middleman. We want to be able to communicate more directly with the gamer. We don't want our message to get diluted along the way. All right, let's start with the streaming stuff. That looks cool. A lot of people are talking about streaming. How can we embrace streaming and make it our type of streaming? We started doing that in 2013. We said streaming is great, but now we want to add something else to the mix. We want to be able to also offer content through our own channels, and that's when we started the Paradox Online accounts. And it continues like this. Obviously, we've got several initiatives that I can't share with you right now, but just that incremental step-by-step, making the journey the goal rather than the end goal itself. And this is something that I feel we've been able to communicate very well internally as well. Okay, trends. So many great things are happening in our industry today. They have been for the past 10 years. I think that's one of the things that inspires me the most about this industry, is that the only thing that's constant is change, right? So as you discuss and inspire and talk about what these new trends mean for you now, think about how you're going to extract this to become your trend. If a lot of people are moving in the same direction, how are you going to differentiate yourselves? How are you going to make this your trend? For us, it's been very much about, we call it doing it the Paradox way, right? We've been told a lot that, oh, you can't publish games like that or you can't develop games like that because this is the traditional model to do it. And obviously today we know that's not really the case. There are many different ways of conducting business on the development side. But for us, it's been small teams on the developer side, small teams, iteration in development, always having a very clear idea of who the core audience is, who's going to play this game once it's actually out there. On the business side, it's been very much, we want to be where our core audience is. Oh, but look over here. There's like 100 million gamers over here. You should be over here. Yes, but our core audience is over here. So this is where we should be. Just knowing where your path is and where you get the biggest bang for your buck. Same thing when we're signing games. We're always signing them with the objective of reaching our core audience first and making sure that they're tailored and catered for. So again, what's your trend in this new trendy? How do you embrace it and how do you make it yours? And how do you differentiate yourself in this landscape of change? Okay, this might sound really grand, choosing your core philosophy and sticking to it. What I'd like to say is, whether you're starting out or whether you've been around for a while, whether you're a team of 2 people or 200 people, you need to identify a couple of things that are your non-negotiables, the things that you're not going to change regardless of what happened. You can tweak them, of course, but the fundamentals of your business that you base your decisions on. Now, for us, that has been starting with and catering for our core audience. Obviously, that doesn't mean that our core audience have told us where we're going and what we're doing, but we've always based our new strategies, new business ventures, our future plans on how this fits in with our existing core audience. Sometimes we've had to tell them, we think that this is the best way forward, and they might not agree with us. But a lot of the times, once we've actually implemented something, they've seen the benefit of that, right? They're not going to ask us for things that they don't know to ask for. Once we've been able to show them how we've done it, the Paradox way, it's usually worked out fine. And if it hasn't, we've tweaked it along the way. So basing it on your core audience, knowing who your core audience is, has been one of these. The other one is having a very clear vision when you're developing a game and when you're bringing a game to market. We haven't always been great at this. And in fact, a lot of the things that I'm talking about here is work in progress. You're always developing, you're always learning, of course. But when we were 20 people, it was fairly easy to be able to talk about what sort of game you were developing and what you were aiming for the consumer experience. What should the gamer expect once they actually jump into the game's universe? When you're 50, still fairly okay. When you're 180, it's completely impossible. So this is one of the things that we've worked a lot on, trying to have a super clear vision for the game itself. Now, Marina from Colossal Order is going to talk a little bit about City Skylines this afternoon. But I love that game's vision. It's, let's see if I get it right now, because I always stumble on the words. It's an old school, hardcore city builder for the modern gamer. Fairly clear, right? The people who are developing the game know what the consumer promises, what the gamers are supposed to expect once they actually get their hands on the game. The people who are marketing the game, selling the game, QA testing the game, the vision is really clear. Or be a Renaissance emperor for Europa Universalis. When you're basing your design decisions or you're sitting there in your team programming, you know that the end game, the user experience should be, they should feel like a Renaissance emperor. So, I'm not telling you to adopt our core philosophies, but make sure you have a couple that kind of guide you through all of these new trends and all of this change that you will experience throughout your years of running your business. All right. So we started in space, let's finish in space. Like I said before, I think one of the things that I've identified and we've identified over the past decade is that the only thing that's constant is change, and that might sound very cliche-ish, but this is our experience. And I'd like to think that with some of these principles that I've talked to you about today, we've been able to find our way and really capitalize on a lot of the new trends and a lot of the new things that have happened in our industry. What I didn't mention here is that we've, of course, done a lot of experimenting. We've tried new business models, new genres, new platforms. Sometimes we've failed miserably. But we've always done it alongside our core business rather than at the expense of our core business. And I think that's one of the things that's kept us afloat and given us this organic, this steady growth over the years. So I'd like to think that had we been the crew on Apollo 13, our call to Houston wouldn't necessarily have been, Houston, we have a problem. It would have been, Houston, we have a pretty awesome opportunity here, and we'll see you on the other side. And that's what I would like to leave you guys with. Maybe we'll see each other in Slush playing in 5 years' time, or was it Hilmar said, 5 or 7 years' time. You can tell me what core principles you based your business on that made you be able to navigate the external changes and the new trends. in a way that created organic and sustainable growth long term. Thank you. That was all I had. Thank you very much.